Theresa May has said she was cross about Johnson's speech, a clip of which we heard there, didn't she?
Good morning, Belle. Well, yes, she is pretty cross about this. Both she and her predecessor, David Cameron, are used to what's called B-Day, the day that Boris invades their carefully planned party conferences and dominates the headlines before disappearing again. And that is exactly what Boris Johnson did yesterday. The Prime Minister tried to get out ahead of him by announcing a new immigration policy, a big announcement, which was meant to be in her speech today, but she brought it forward to try to drown out Boris. She even announced a policy just as he arrived at conference, legalising mixed-sex civil partnership. But all this failed really to knock him off the top of the bulletins last night, because when Boris Johnson arrived, people had been queuing for around 2 hours to get into the hall he was speaking in. It was absolutely packed. There was a giant media scrum as he came through the conference centre here. Lots of people getting knocked over just as he tried to make it to the stage. And Boris Johnson blasted the Prime Minister's Chequers plans. He called for them to be chucked. There were people going around the conference with T-shirts that were being given out by his supporters saying, "Chuck Chequers." And he gave a wide-ranging speech talking about tax cuts, housing, Margaret Thatcher, all the things that you need to do to try to become Conservative Party leader. This was very much Boris Johnson now out in the open after a couple of weeks trying to get the Prime Minister's job. Lots of people were watching, but the Prime Minister claims she wasn't. But here's what she had to say about Boris.
Two things that Boris said that I am cross about. He wanted to tear up our guarantee to the people of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. You know, we are all, he and I, all members here are members of the Conservative and Unionist Party. That's because we believe in the union of the United Kingdom. Northern Ireland is part of that union.
Now, on that point, the Prime Minister is right. Boris Johnson didn't have anything really to say about the Northern Ireland issue. Comes to Brexit. He suggested building a bridge to Ireland in the past couple of days, though. But there were a significant number of Theresa May's Conservative MPs, including senior ones like former leader Ian Duncan-Smith, in that audience. And it looked like if they backed Boris, there would be enough MPs there to vote down the Prime Minister's Chequers Brexit plan. And then we'd be in a situation where she may be about to lose her leadership. And it's very clear now that Boris Johnson is gunning to come back to this conference next year as leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister of this country.
So the pressure is on Theresa May in her speech that she's due to give in a few hours' time. What can we expect from that speech, Vincent?
Well, the Prime Minister really has to give the speech of her political life. She thought she'd be coming here, having gone to the Salzburg meeting with the EU leaders, having approved her Chequers Brexit plan. That isn't the case, so she now needs to try to salvage it with her own party members. But we all remember last year, her voice failed her. She had to be passed cough sweets by the Chancellor. The stage behind her started collapsing, and at one point a comedian invaded, giving her a P45 redundancy form he claimed was from Boris Johnson. Well, now Boris Johnson really is trying to give Theresa May one of those. So she needs to get her party behind her on her Chequers plan and announce some other things to prove that she's not just a Brexit Prime Minister, that she's going to go on beyond March next year. Because everyone here this week, Boris Johnson and others in the Cabinet, have been auditioning to replace her.